let my family believe I was insignificant for most of my life. Not because I didn't know my worth, but because correcting them would have required something I didn't yet have: the courage to stop needing their approval. My name is Sarah Collins, and before I tell you how my silence finally collapsed the entire structure they built on top of me, I want you to tell me something first. Where are you watching from right now? Leave it in the comments. Because if you've ever been treated like the invisible one in your own family, this story might feel painfully familiar. In my family, love wasn't loud. It wasn't violent either. It was selective. My mother, Patricia, had a very clear hierarchy, even if she never said it out loud. My sister Emily stood at the top of it, admired, defended, excused. My father hovered somewhere in the background, present but neutral, like furniture you don't notice until it's gone. And me, I was the function, the one who filled gaps, the one who fixed problems, the one who made sure everything worked smoothly so no one else had to be uncomfortable. Growing up, I learned very early that praise was currency, and I wasn't rich enough to afford it. Emily got attention just for existing. I got responsibility. When she forgot her homework, teachers were blamed. When I forgot mine, it was proof I was careless. When she cried, my mother rushed in. When I stayed quiet, it was labeled maturity. "You're the strong one, Sarah," my mother used to say with a tight smile, which really meant you don't get to need anything. By the time I was a teenager, I wasn't asking for help anymore. I was offering it before anyone noticed they needed it. It became instinct. Survival through usefulness. I worked part-time jobs while Emily focused on social life. I learned budgeting while she learned how to be adored. I paid my own way through college with scholarships, loans, and a quiet determination no one ever praised because no one ever noticed. And when I graduated and started climbing professionally, slowly, deliberately, my family didn't celebrate. They adjusted their expectations. Sarah can handle it. Sarah doesn't mind. Sarah will figure it out. They said it so often it stopped sounding like a compliment and started sounding like a sentence. Everything came to a head the year Emily got engaged. It was supposed to be joyful. That's what everyone said. A celebration, a unifying moment. But from the very beginning, it felt like a transaction. My mother called me before Emily even announced it publicly. "We're going to need your help," she said, not asking, just informing. Help meant planning. Help meant organizing. Help meant paying deposits temporarily because things were tight right now. I didn't agree immediately, and that pause and that single moment of hesitation was the first crack. Patricia sighed like I disappointed her. "I thought you'd want to support your sister." There it was, the guilt dressed as morality. So I said yes. I always did back then. Over the next few months, I became the backbone of a wedding I wasn't emotionally invited to. Venue coordination, vendor negotiations, payment schedules, contracts. Everything official had my name on it. Everything celebratory had Emily's. No one thanked me. No one asked if it was okay. They just assumed. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the way my presence became optional the moment my usefulness was secured. That realization didn't hit me all at once. It came in small, sharp moments. Like the afternoon I suggested cutting back on the floral budget, and Emily rolled her eyes and said, "You always make everything about money." Or the night my mother praised Emily for handling the stress so gracefully, while I was the one answering vendor emails at midnight. Or the way conversation stopped when I walked into a room, not because I wasn't welcome, but because I wasn't necessary in that moment. Still, I stayed quiet. Because silence had always been safer than confrontation. Until the message came, not a call, not a conversation, a text. "Please don't come to the wedding. We want a drama-free day." I read it 3 times, then a 4th. It wasn't even cruel in tone. That's what hurt the most. It was efficient, decisive, like removing an inconvenience. 30 seconds later, Emily reacted to the message. A small heart icon, like my absence was a favor. Like erasing me improved the atmosphere. Something inside me didn't shatter. It clicked. A soft, final click, like a door locking behind me. I typed back 2 words. Understood. Then I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling something unfamiliar settle into my chest. Not anger, clarity. Because in that moment, I finally saw the truth I'd been avoiding for years. They didn't exclude me by accident. They removed me once they thought they no longer needed me. What they didn't realize, what they never bothered to confirm, was that every single thing holding that wedding together legally and financially was still attached to me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't rush to fix it. I let the silence stretch. I let them assume. I let them believe they were in control. And that's where everything truly began. I didn't confront anyone right away. That was the first mistake they assumed I would make. For years, my family had trained themselves to expect one of two reactions from me: compliance or quiet disappointment. Either way, nothing ever changed. They thought this time would be the same. So when hours passed without a follow-up call from me, no argument, no pleading, no dramatic message, they relaxed. They thought I had accepted my place. What they didn't realize was that silence, for the first time, wasn't submission. It was strategy. That evening, I opened my laptop and logged into the account I'd been using for wedding payments. Every invoice was there, every deposit, every contract, organized, time-stamped, traceable. I scrolled slowly, not out of nostalgia, but out of confirmation. Venue, paid, catering, paid, florals, partially paid, balance pending, photography, deposit paid, music, lighting, rentals, all under my authorization. It wasn't just that I had contributed. I had controlled everything. And suddenly, my mother's message made sense in a way that went deeper than hurt feelings. They didn't uninvite me because I was dramatic. They uninvited me because they thought the risk had passed. They believed the work was done. They were wrong. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. Not because I felt vindicated, but because for the first time, I wasn't bracing myself for what they'd ask of me next. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. "We need to talk." No apology, no explanation, just need. I didn't reply. Instead, I called my grandmother. Her name is Ruth, and she has always existed quietly on the edges of our family, respected in theory, overlooked in practice. She answered on the second ring. "Are you okay?" she asked before I could say anything. That was her gift. She never assumed strength meant invulnerability. "I am," I said, surprised to realize it was true. "But I need to ask you something." I told her about the message, about being told not to come, about the way it was delivered. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. "I was afraid of this," she said softly. "Of what?" "Of them taking you for granted until there was nothing left to take." Her words settled deep. Then she added something that shifted everything. "Sarah, do you know how many bills I haven't paid in years?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then said, "Because you've been paying them. Quietly. Through the accounts you set up for me." My chest tightened. Years ago, when her health had started declining, I'd offered to help manage things. Groceries, prescriptions, utilities, because my parents always said they were busy. I hadn't realized how completely that responsibility had transferred to me. "They never noticed," I asked. She let out a humorless laugh. "They noticed the convenience, not the source." And suddenly, the picture sharpened. It wasn't just the wedding. It was everything. The family vacations they still took, the medical bills they never stressed over, the emergencies that always seemed to resolve themselves. They didn't see me as generous. They saw me as infrastructure. That realization didn't make me angry. It made me precise. That afternoon, I emailed the venue. Professional, polite, clear. I referenced the cancellation clause, the timeline, the fact that authorization was mine, then the caterer, then the florist. One by one, I withdrew, not emotionally, administratively. I didn't announce it to my family. I let reality do the talking. By evening, my phone was lighting up. Missed calls from my mother, messages from Emily. "What did you do?" "This isn't funny." "You're overreacting." I didn't respond. The next morning, my father called. His voice was unfamiliar, strained, uncertain. "Sarah, Your mother says the venue is threatening to cancel. They already did, I said calmly. A pause. You can't just do that. I can, I replied. I did. You're punishing us. I closed my eyes. No, I said. I'm stepping back. That's the same thing, he insisted. No, I corrected gently. Punishment requires intent to harm. This is just the absence of rescue. He didn't know how to respond to that. Neither of them did. By the third day, the panic became visible. Emily called me directly. She didn't sound angry anymore. She sounded scared. Sarah, she said, voice shaking slightly. We need to fix this. You don't understand how embarrassing this is. I almost laughed. Embarrassing? I repeated. Yes, she snapped. People are asking questions. Mom's stressed. This was supposed to be perfect. I waited. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask how I felt. She only talked about the impact. And that's when I finally spoke the truth out loud. You told me not to come, I said evenly. So I didn't, in every way. Silence. Then, quietly, you're doing this on purpose. Yes, I said. I am. She inhaled sharply. You're cruel. No, I replied. I'm done. That ended the call. Later that week, my grandmother told me my mother had stopped by her apartment, unannounced. She wanted to know why things were suddenly difficult, Ruth said dryly. Did you tell her? I asked. I told her the truth, she said, that for years you made things easy for everyone else, and now they're learning what life feels like without you buffering it. My mother didn't call me after that. She sent one final message. I hope you're happy. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back, I'm finally honest. And for the first time, I meant it. A week passed. Then another. And something strange happened. No one asked me for anything. No calls about payments. No messages about logistics. No, can you just handle this one thing? The silence wasn't peaceful. It was revealing. Because when I wasn't carrying their problems, they didn't know how to carry themselves. My mother stopped hosting. My father started complaining about expenses he'd never noticed before. Emily's wedding plans shrank from grand certainty to awkward improvisation. And for the first time in my life, I was watching my family react to the absence of my labor, not my presence. They had built their stability on something they never acknowledged. Me. The confrontation didn't come dramatically. It came quietly, the way real consequences usually do. It was my grandmother who told me they were planning to talk things through. They want to come by, she said over the phone. All of them. I didn't hesitate. Tell them yes, I said, but not here, at my place. I wanted them in my space, not the house where I'd learned to shrink, not the dining room where my voice was always too much or not enough. My space. They arrived on a Sunday afternoon. My mother stood stiffly near the door, purse clutched tight. My father hovered behind her, already tired. Emily looked smaller than usual. Not humbled, just unsure. No one hugged me. That alone told me everything. We didn't come to fight, my mother said quickly, as if reading from a script. Good, I replied. Neither did I. We sat. Silence stretched. Finally, my mother exhaled sharply. You blindsided us, she said. You embarrassed your sister. I nodded once. Yes. She blinked. You're not even going to deny it. No, I said calmly, because you embarrassed me first. You just did it quietly, for years. Emily scoffed. You're being dramatic. I turned to her. Tell me, I said, did you ever once ask where the money came from? She opened her mouth, closed it. My father shifted uncomfortably. We assumed, he began. That's the problem, I said. You assumed my effort was infinite, that my silence meant consent. My mother's voice sharpened. You could have said no. I met her eyes. You taught me not to. That landed hard. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my mother said the thing she had been holding onto like a shield. We did the best we could. I leaned back. No, I said quietly. You did what was easiest. And I made that easy. Emily crossed her arms. So what? You want an apology? I shook my head. No, I want accountability. She rolled her eyes. You always want things to be so intense. And you always want things to be painless, I replied, even when someone else pays for it. My father finally spoke. We didn't realize how much pressure you were under. I looked at him. You never asked. Silence again. This time, it felt different. Less defensive. More exposed. My mother's voice softened, just slightly. So what happens now? I took a breath. This was the moment, not the revenge, the boundary. I stopped paying, I said. I stopped managing. I stopped buffering the consequences of your choices. Emily's eyes widened. You can't just... I can, I said. And I will. My mother's composure cracked. You're abandoning your family. I didn't raise my voice. I'm redefining it. That was when my grandmother spoke. She had been sitting quietly near the window, hands folded. Sarah isn't abandoning anyone, she said gently. She's choosing herself, something none of you ever allowed her to do. My mother turned to her. Mom, stay out of this. Ruth didn't flinch. No, she said. I stayed out of it for years. That's how it got this bad. Emily stood abruptly. This is ridiculous, she snapped. We're being punished because you feel unappreciated. I stood too. No, I said. You're experiencing life without subsidies. That ended it. They left shortly after. No resolution, no tearful reconciliation, just the uncomfortable truth sitting between us, unresolved. And for once, I didn't chase them down to smooth it over. In the weeks that followed, my life changed in small, steady ways. I stopped checking my phone with dread. I stopped budgeting for emergencies that weren't mine. I slept through the night. I took a position I'd been delaying, a role that challenged me instead of draining me. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why it took me so long to stop sacrificing myself for approval that never came. Emily's wedding happened. Smaller, quieter, cheaper. I wasn't invited, and I didn't miss it. My mother still tells people she doesn't understand what happened. She says I changed. She's right. I did. Because one day, I realized something that altered everything. They never saw my worth because I never demanded they respect it. I thought love meant endurance. I was wrong. Love, real love, doesn't require you to disappear. And silence. Silence is only dangerous when it's forced. When it's chosen, it's power. I let my family think I was worthless for years, until the day I stopped paying quietly, and everything they built on my silence finally collapsed. Not in flames, in truth. The last message I ever received from my mother came 3 months later. It wasn't angry, it wasn't loving, it was confused. I don't understand why you changed so much, she wrote. I stared at the screen for a long time before realizing something important. I hadn't changed. I had just stopped compensating, stopped filling the gaps they refused to see, stopped paying the emotional and financial debts no one acknowledged, stopped mistaking tolerance for love. I didn't reply. Not because I was being cruel, but because for the first time in my life, silence was no longer a punishment. It was a choice. Emily tried once. She sent a photo from her wedding day, a smaller dress, a simpler venue, a forced smile. We did it without you, she wrote. Guess we didn't need you after all. I looked at the photo, at the strain behind her eyes, at the tightness in her posture, at the way the image tried so hard to look like victory, and I smiled, because she was wrong. They needed me. They just couldn't control me anymore. Life didn't become perfect after that, but it became honest. I paid my own bills. I made plans that didn't include saving anyone else. I laughed without checking if it bothered someone. I rested without guilt. And slowly, something shifted inside me. I stopped feeling invisible. Not because they finally saw me, but because I stopped needing them to. One evening, I sat with my grandmother on her porch, the sun sinking low, the air warm and still. "You look lighter," she said. "I feel lighter," I answered. She nodded. "That's what happens when you put down what was never yours to carry." I realized then that strength isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand applause. Sometimes, strength is just the quiet decision to stop paying for love that never arrives, to stop explaining your worth, to stop shrinking so others can stand taller. I was the family secret for years, the one who paid quietly, the one who fixed silently, the one who made everything work without ever being thanked, until the night my silence cost them everything and gave me my life back. If you've ever been the strong one, the invisible one, the one who carried more than anyone noticed, this isn't the end. It's the moment you stop disappearing and start choosing yourself.